The wall slid closed behind me and Natalie. The wall was smooth. Perfectly smooth, as if the doorway was never there before. Ahead of us was another room. It was empty. Old. And dusty. Where are we?
Room 1. I can't get us into the management room directly, and this is the fastest way through.
She walked further into the room towards the door on the opposite side. She moved fearlessly ahead. I couldn't help but feel like she knew something that I didn't. It was a good feeling, though, to know that she wasn't afraid of the house, helping me to no longer be as afraid. This can't be Room 1, I said. Room 1 was filled with shitty Halloween decorations.
Room 1 is always filled with decorations. It's how the house plays with you. It knows what you're not afraid of.
There's nothing here.
This is my Room 1. I've never had a Halloween.
I didn't say anything to her after that. But I definitely questioned how the fuck could no one have had a Halloween. Maybe it's that family that she talked about. Maybe they never celebrated. Either way, if she knew the house, what other option did I have but to follow? She placed her hand on the doorknob and walked through the door labeled 2. Room 2 was the same size as Room 1, but this room was filled with playground equipment. Natalie's stride never broke. She continued deeper into the room, and I followed at a steady pace, falling in behind her. I couldn't help but look in awe at the slides and swings as we passed along the way. This was so different from my room, too. No paper ghosts or smoke machines. It was almost eerie. If I hadn't spent so much time in the house already, I would have been shocked. At some point, I must have been lost in my thoughts a while, staring at the golden 3 that was screwed into the brown wooden door in front of me. I had to catch myself from bashing my head into it and giving myself a bloody nose. I must have zoned out. I looked back at Natalie as she came through the room, looking at the swings as she went by. I could have sworn she was ahead of me a moment ago. Out of instinct, I reached for the knob.
Wait!
In the last split second, I turned my head to see as Natalie reached out to me before my hand touched the knob for Room 3. Instantly, the room went black. My hand grasped nothing. I felt around in front of me, frantically trying to find the door that I knew I was standing in front of just a moment earlier. I found nothing. Just blackness. And silence. God damn it! I was in the blackness again. That fucking blackness that was my Room 4 must be Natalie's Room 3. I felt the panic rising in me again. All confidence from watching Natalie earlier was gone. I outstretched my arms in all directions, trying to find a wall or a door. Natalie? Where are you? I called into the darkness. No response. She had to be in this room, just not around me. Natalie! Then I heard something. The hum. That fucking hum was back. It was soft again. It started to build. The panic was definitely back. The house knew that this was the worst thing that it could give me, and it was torturing me with it again. I started moving. If I kept going in one direction, I'd have to find a wall. Even if it's not the door, I could follow the wall until I found a way out. I must have been moving faster than I thought as I crashed into something hard that shook and fell over. It startled me, but I don't think it could have been a person. Last time I was in this room, I knew that I was alone, but this time, I was sure something had to be here. Suddenly, a flash lit up, flooding the room with temporary light. It had been a stool. And what had rolled off of it was a flashlight. No, that couldn't be it. Why? Why? Before I had a chance to look for the exit, the lights went out again, and then I was thrust back into blackness. I dropped to my hands and knees, searching where the afterimage of the flashlight still was. I grasped it, and prayed that the light hadn't broken when it fell. The beam nearly illuminated the whole room with light. Thank God it still worked. Directly ahead of me was a handwritten 4 in black Sharpie on a glass door. Thanks to the light, I noticed a tag on the flashlight. To David. With love from management. The fuckers were toying with me, weren't they? This time. But this time, I'm with... I searched the room again. Natalie was nowhere to be found. All 4 walls. The door. No Natalie. Reluctantly, I continued to the exit. If Natalie was still in the house with me, I'd find her. I found that the glass door was so fogged up I couldn't see through it. But whatever was on the other side, it radiated cold. I opened the door and stepped in. Room 4 didn't require the flashlight. It was cold, that's for damn sure, but it wasn't dark. It was a well-lit meat locker. Row after row of cow and pig carcasses hung in all directions. Whomever this was intended to feed, they must have had a killer appetite. The chill made it hard to stay still for too long. I rubbed my hands over my exposed arms and moved one of the meat slabs to the side, looking beyond. More meat. I continued deeper, and even more meat still. I moved further on in silence, passing by carcasses of every noticeable animal the further that I went. I soon found my hands and clothes were sticky and red with the blood of the hanging beasts of all different shapes and sizes. To make things even more confusing, I began to see animals that I didn't recognize. Creatures with more than 4 legs, which didn't seem possible to me. Finally, I came across one that I did recognize. I was expecting to see this from the moment that I entered the meat locker, but that didn't save my stomach from turning at the sight. A human body, skinned, decapitated, hung in my way. I tried not to look, and pushed past. This was disgusting. More and more bodies hung from the ceiling closer together, and to make matters worse, the temperature was starting to rise. The bodies were suffocating enough, but the air became thick with the stench of wet rot. They were squeezing me enough to almost rise me off the ground while pushing my way through. The frozen meat had become soft, squishy. Pulling off chunks as I pushed my way past, I coughed and held my hand over my face to keep myself from vomiting. Little help that did. I ended up covering myself in more blood. I couldn't do this. I couldn't move. I was going to die here, drown in blood and bodies. I reached my arm deeper into the bodies and rested my head on a blood-soaked ribcage, suspended in the air, drawing in breath as much as I could through my mouth to save myself from the smell. The coppery taste of blood on my tongue and the stench filled my nose, smothering me. I was starting to lose consciousness. Something grabbed me. I was going to recoil my arm, but I couldn't. The hand had grabbed me tightly along my forearm. I was being pulled back towards the hand's origin, pulling me out of the bodies and into room 5. I found Natalie looking down at me. I was sitting at the base of the door as a blue light illuminated Natalie's look of anger. I could breathe again. Natalie was back. Finally, my panic began to subside.
Don't you ever touch a door without me!
You could have said something beforehand. This isn't my house. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to get my girlfriend and get out of... A vibration in my pocket. I pulled out my phone to find another text from Peter. Don't trust her. Natalie looked down at my phone and snatched it out of my hand. She angrily pointed the phone at me accusatively.
Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? You're talking with Peter? Do you know what this is? This is the house! Phones can't work here. You are talking to the house. You can't trust me? I have told you everything about this house. I led you back into the house, and you can't trust me?
He just sent that to me. Don't fucking accuse me of anything. I gruffly snatched my phone back from her hand and shoved it back into my pocket. I pushed her to the side and moved into the room. I hadn't taken in the room until this point, but the blue lights finally made sense. We were at an indoor pool, lit around the edges by submerged lights. What is this? We walked over to the pool and looked in. I could see the bottom with the lit up 6. Next to the water's edge was a yellow scuba tank. Just one. I knelt beside it as she dipped her fingers into the waters to test it. She didn't recoil or scream, so as far as I could tell, the water was safe enough. I inspected the tank. As expected, there was another note. With love. From management. Fucking management. Was it Peter that was giving me these things? If it was, why? Why help me? I ripped off the tag and placed it in my pocket. Picked up the tank. I handed it to Natalie. We're gonna have to share.
Can you trust me with it? I want my house back, David. I want to control this house. Can you trust me more than Peter?
I did not look away from her. I weighed her. I had no idea why she would want this house. But I needed her. I shook my hand for her to take the tank from me. She did, and fixed the rebreather into her mouth. I needed her. I didn't trust her. Two things became apparent when entering the water. The lights on the 6 at the bottom of the pool were off as soon as we entered. And the water was surprisingly warm. If I didn't feel like my life was in danger, I might have actually enjoyed this swim. We dove down, and it quickly became evident that the 6 at the bottom did not signify 6 feet. The bottom seemed to almost drop away. We swam down, taking a break every so often to breathe from Natalie's rebreather. The pressure grew stronger as we descended, and the lights began to fade. After a few minutes, I felt like I should be seeing anglerfish swimming around as it became darker and darker. I searched my body and found the flashlight that I was still holding from room 3. It couldn't hurt to try. And a beam of light shot out into the darkness in the water. I took another hit of fresh air from Natalie's rebreather and saw her looking at the light and then back up at me. Her expression told me that we would have another heated conversation about the flashlight when we got out of the water. I pointed it downward. Still no bottom. We pressed on downward. I felt a current of motion in the water above me. I turned the flashlight upward and searched the water. By this point, there was nothing around. The water was pitch black in all directions. I couldn't even see the surface anymore. I looked back towards Natalie, who looked at me confused. I wrote it off as another hallucination. Just the house messing with me. And continued downward. The house was getting to me, and I was jumpy as it was. The current changed again, and this time I could feel it closer. I swam close to Natalie to take another breath from the O2 tank and pointed the flashlight in all directions to check again. Still nothing but blackness. Her hand rested on my wrist, and she looked at me concerned. I tried to communicate with her, but it was impossible without speech. How do you say, "I think there's a lake monster in here," without words? Suddenly, her grip tightened, and her body thrashed about. The rebreather dropped from my mouth. I snatched at her wrist and caught her expression. Her eyes were wide with panic as she looked down at her leg. Something was there. Something that was a deep blue or a black. I couldn't see it clearly, and I couldn't point the light directly at it with all the thrashing. I couldn't let her go. I needed her. She needed to get me to the end of this house. She opened her mouth to scream, but only bubbles escaped in the pressure underwater. She needed the O2 tank or she'd drown. But there was too much going on to think how to fix it. It was all happening too fast. I couldn't put it all together. Her grip loosened. And she was gone in an instant. Into the black water. I pointed the flashlight in the direction that she went in. Nothing. Darkness. She was gone. But the oxygen was gone as well, and the panic was setting in. My chest started to burn. Finally, I looked down. I was at the bottom. And below me was a large white 6 painted perfectly on the sheet of glass. It was right here. But that was impossible. With all the thrashing, I should have been ascending, not descending. But it was the bottom nonetheless. I looked upwards again, trying to find Natalie. I couldn't continue without her, but my air was running out. The pressure at this depth was pushing precious oxygen out of my lungs. I looked back at the glass and bashed it with the flashlight. Nothing. Shit! I have to get through this. How was I supposed to when I was underwater? I bashed it again as hard as I could with the water resistance holding me back. A crack. Thank God, a fucking crack. I willed back again, but my body betrayed me, and I took in a short inhale of water. I choked and held a hand over my nose and mouth. This can't be happening. There was nowhere else to go. I couldn't go back up. The crack grew below me. I kicked at it as hard as I could. I flooded into room 6, completely dry but coughing water out of my lungs and gasping for precious air. On my hands and knees, crying, coughing, I fell to my side. I didn't want to continue. I'd already gone through this hell once. What the hell was I doing here again? What could be worse this fucking torture? You've been cheating. The first time I heard that voice, I nearly jumped out of my skin, but this time I remembered her. And just like last time, she wasn't going to let me pass out. I caught my breath and stood up to face her. Just like before, the girl and the beast consumed the same space. I couldn't keep looking at her for long, but I did what I could to not show how much my head throbbed from looking at them. You can't have a partner. That's cheating, you know. Is she alive? Is who alive? Maggie doesn't like this new girl. That struck it. Maggie was here. She knew it. I was getting closer. How do you know Maggie? Is she here? Do you know where she is? Who's Maggie? Stop fucking with me! Fuck this house. Fuck Peter. Fuck whatever the hell you are. Give me Maggie and get me the fuck out of here.
Fine.
This time she didn't sound like the little girl. This time she sounded like Maggie. That was the last straw. Oh, fuck you. I turned my back to the thing. I was going to move on. I ran my hands over the wall, looking for the door. What did I have to do this time? I slammed my fist against the wall, searching for the hollow point with no result. It was solid. Did I need to scratch the 7 into the door again? I took my nail and started to trace the shape of the 7 into the paint.
That's not going to work.
I spun around to look the little girl in the face and tell her to shut her goddamn mouth. But I was near speechless to find Maggie standing before me. She couldn't be real. She couldn't be there. Nonetheless, I was fighting back happy tears and the urge to run to her and hold her in my arms again. Maggie? Is this really you, or is this the house? I have to know.
It's fine, I understand. You want Natalie back, right? Is she your new girlfriend, David?
No, it's not like that. She's helping me rescue you.
Wasn't that your fault, though? Didn't you lead me to this house?
No, Maggie, I didn't want you to come here. I was just trying to make some quick cash.
No, David. I think you were fucking a girl behind my back. I think you told Peter to bring me here. I think you wanted me out of the way.
Maggie's hand slid from behind her back, holding a surgical scalpel. Maggie, this is crazy. Why would I kill you? Calm down.
No, David. I'm done with your lying and your bullshit. I'm done with you.
Maggie, stop. This house is fucking with us, okay? This isn't you. I swear to God, it isn't you, and whatever you were seeing, it wasn't me.
No, David.
She pointed the knife at herself and raised her hand into the air. The light from the one light bulb shining above her gleamed off the blade. My hand came up from my side. This isn't real. I swear, this has to just be the house fucking with me. She wouldn't say this. She couldn't do this.
This is real.
I screamed louder than I ever screamed as she plunged the knife into her chest. I watched it unfold in front of me like a horror movie. She stared at me right in the eyes and covered her body in blood. She repeatedly thrust the scalpel into her chest and her throat over and over and over. She fell to the floor in a heap. I still stood there screaming. If this was real, like she said, what had I done? When my throat was finally hoarse from screaming, I dropped to her side and held her. Tears were streaming down my face as I sobbed. All I could say was, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, continuously. As much as I wanted to believe that this was the house playing with me, I couldn't help it. This was Maggie. I loved this girl, and now... I looked over her wounds. Her cuts formed a 7 in her chest. If the house could laugh at me, I'm sure it would have. The tears stopped. My body shook. I wanted to scream and cry and burn this goddamn house to the ground. I placed my hand on the scalpel that was still sticking out of the 7 in Maggie's chest and pulled. I was outside. Room 8 is always outside. I sat there in front of the no-end house, but somehow I knew I was still in the no-end house. I looked around me as though I was the living dead. I was just holding my dead girlfriend. I was just there, watching her yell at me, watching her break, and watching her commit suicide. Was she even really in the house? Have I just been stuck in this house the whole time? The house was going too far. It was too much. I couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't anymore. I wanted out. Vibrations in my pocket again. I was shocked that my phone was still working after swimming in the pool for so long. But then again, I ended up out of room 5 without a drop of water on me. It was Peter.
David, you have to go home.
Peter, what the fuck is going on? I'm in the house, and this girl said that you were the one running it.
She's not wrong. And she's not right. Go home, David.
I can't. I'm back in the house already.
No, you're outside. Go home.
Fuck you. I put my phone back in my pocket and pulled out my keys. The house had told me all I needed to know. If I was outside, if I was really outside, I would go to the police. I'd contact anyone that could help me. We'd tear the house down brick by brick if we had to get Maggie out. I started up my car and backed away from the house. Finally. I didn't know if it was real or not, but it felt good to at least watch the house fade into the darkness behind my car as I traveled down the dirt road. 10 minutes later, I was finally back into town and parking my car on the street next to the police station. I turned off the car, rested my head on the steering wheel. A sigh escaped my lips. Please. Please be real, I whispered to myself. And if it is, it's felt like years since I spoke to another human being who wasn't involved with this house. I prepped myself as much as I could and got out of the car. A small stoop sat before the police station, and I hopped up the steps quickly. Only to come to a sight that I dreaded to see. Across both the doors of the police station in black paint was spray-painted a large 8. I shook my head in disbelief. I knew that I was still in the house, but it knew that I would come here. That was insane. Peter just told me that I was outside. He was fucking with me. He was running things here. I pulled my phone from my pocket. No new text messages. Dialing 911, I placed the phone to my ear. If I couldn't get in, maybe I could call someone to come out.
David, go home and forget about the house.
I dropped my phone. That was Peter's voice. This was the house. This was the fucking house again. I ran back down the stairs and got into my car. I started it up. I had no idea where I was going or where I could go to. I just drove. Every store, every house, every fucking mailbox I passed. 8. 8s were on everything, on every street. No matter where I turned, there was the door to the next room. I couldn't enjoy being out of the house. I couldn't get help. I was helplessly trapped in the no-end house. I made it home. I don't know how or why I drove home. I didn't think I was driving home, but here, I was parked in my driveway again. The door of my car creaked open, and I looked up at my door. There was no 8. Closer and closer I came to it, but not one 8 this time. My neighbors all had 8s. My door had a glowing green exit above it, like you would see at the halls of a school. The house had to be lying to me. This couldn't be the exit. But if Peter was the management, maybe he really wanted me out of the house. Maybe I was too close, and he knew that I was. Freedom is right here. And all I had to do was walk out. My breathing was so much harder, my hands moved to the doorknob of the exit. Why was I even here anymore? Why not risk the exit? Another vibration. Maggie's dead. Forget about her and move on. I looked at the illuminated screen. Maggie. Didn't I drop my phone at the police station? I thought. I took my hand away from the doorknob. The humming was back. The house was pushing me to leave. The management wanted me to leave. That means Maggie couldn't be dead. I took a step back away from the door. Maggie was here. I walked down the steps of my house. Maggie needed me. I walked up to my neighbor's door with a large 8 painted on it. We were going to get out of here together. I entered room 8. I was in the room again. One chair. One light. The door behind me was gone again. I didn't have to turn to know that, but my eyes didn't leave what was in front of me. Peter sat in the chair before me. He looked like he always did. No blood, no weapons. He just sat there, in his t-shirt and jeans, looking me right in the eyes. He stood up and smiled at me like he was happy to see me, and I continued to look on at him. He did all this to me. To us.
Was it worth another $500, David? Killing Natalie? Killing Maggie?
What? Me? Was this guy serious? Was he going to blame me for all this? He got me involved. He was the one running this fucking house. He was blaming me for all of my torture. Are you real, Peter?
Am I real? Was Natalie real? Or was that the house pushing you further? Because you wanted to go through the service entrance. You wanted to cheat and make your way in and back out again easily.
Stop it! I didn't do anything.
That's not how No End House works, David. You know that.
I'm doing the right thing here. I'm trying to get Maggie out.
There are consequences, David. This is your fault.
Peter, I don't care about what kind of shit you're wrapped up in, man. Your family can be witches or vampires or werewolves, whatever the fuck, man. I don't care. I want out. I just want Maggie and I want out.
You killed them, David. Their blood is on your hands. You had your chance to get out, David, and you didn't take it. And now, the only
Peter's brain was in chunks all over the floor. There was a large hole through his left eye. He fell to the floor in front of me. Two. I watched 2 of the closest people to me die today. I had nothing to say. I just looked at his body as blood pooled around him on the floor from the gaping wound in his head. Natalie stood behind him with a smoking pistol in her hand. She was soaking wet and limped towards me. She was furious and exhausted. The house was really playing tricks on my mind for the past few rooms, but whatever she had seen was far more physically taxing. Tears welled up. Why couldn't we have let him live? I wanted to say. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out.
He was the door.
She said, reading my expression. I turned around to the direction that she was gesturing. And there was the large golden 9 screwed to an oak door.
He's not the real Peter. The real Peter is the management. He was probably going to talk you into killing yourself with this.
She tossed the pistol towards me and I caught it. The barrel was still warm from the bullet that she put through Peter. That Peter had disappeared. The blood and the brains as well. I looked over to the gun to find another note. Don't be afraid. With love. Management.
With love? Want to explain something to me about your relationship with Peter?
I swallowed hard. This wasn't like last time. Management was helping me. Management wanted me to leave. Something changed. No, I wouldn't. You want to explain where you went to?
You mean after you abandoned me?
Look, I just want Maggie, and I want to get out of the house. Whatever happened to you, I thought you were dead. She stared at me. Anger in her eyes, and I stared right back, unblinking. I didn't give a shit where she'd been. I was at room 9. And she had done what she needed to.
Just get me my fucking house back and get out.
We walked into the lobby. On the table again was a letter that read congratulations. But we didn't take the exit. We walked right past the front desk to the door to room 1, which now had a metal plaque that read, Management. The door opened with a click, and we stepped into the room. In the center of the room was a desk. All walls surrounding it had large windows showing the outside of the house. And sitting behind the desk was Maggie. On her chest was pinned, Management. Is that her? The real her? Natalie nodded in disbelief. I ran to Maggie's side. I grabbed a hold of her shoulders and turned her towards me. She was in some kind of trance. She just stared straight ahead. I shook her a bit, trying to break her free. Maggie? Maggie, is that you? Please. Please be okay. I grabbed the hold of that accursed management pin and threw it across the room. I just wanted the house to be as far away from us as it could be. And finally, her eyes focused. Oh, she was coming too. I knelt next to her and looked into her eyes. I brushed some of her hair out of her face so that she could see me clearly. Maggie, it's okay. I've got you now. We can go home.
No, not real, not real!
She was hysterical. She clawed and punched herself away from me. She cowered into the corner, screaming, Maggie, it's me! I swear, it's me! I was confused. I looked back to Natalie. There was something wrong. Natalie bent down and picked up the pin that I had thrown. She turned it over in her hands, eyeing it like it was solid gold. She slowly placed it onto her shirt.
You didn't. I don't believe it. You actually killed him? You're the new management?
I looked back to Maggie, sobbing in the corner, looking towards the window. My hand moved over to the tag on the gun again. She was management? Maggie's eyes stared at the large windows. Maggie saw me leave the house. Maggie saw me use the service entrance. Maggie saw me enter the room. She saw me dive into the pool. She saw me drive to my house. She watched me waver and come back for her. She watched the false Peter die. She watched me walk into the management office. She was watching as I looked at the pistol in front of her. She saw me reach for her. Maggie's eyes ran down her face and looked back towards me, screaming and scratching at my arm.
No, not real, not real!
I pulled my arm back before she could mess me up further. What's wrong with her?
She broke. The house wins. That's what always happens. The house wins. She was never ready to power the house. Peter couldn't either. Not like I could. Peter was right. He was right all this time. The power in this house, it's intoxicating. This is my house.
You have your house back. You can fix her. You have what you want. Now give me what I want. Let me and Maggie escape. I helped you. Help me.
You want to get out with Maggie? Okay.
Natalie raised her hand, pointing in Maggie's direction again. Maggie screamed and grasped at her head. She looked back up at the two standing in the office. And I was horrified to see the word exit scratched into the skin of her forehead. No. No. No, you can't do that!
If you want out of the house, this is the only way. You know the rules. You face a trial to go through the door. This is your trial. Shoot her, David. Set her free and get out of my house.
I won't do that! This isn't fair!
When has this house been fair? If you want out, then open the door. Do you really want to leave her like this? Suffering? Crazy? She could never have a normal life again, David.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that to her. Maggie was sobbing and I was holding the pistol in my hand. The weight of the gun becoming greater with each passing second. My grip on the gun tightened. And I aimed the barrel at Natalie. You let us out. You let us out or I'll kill you.
And then you'll be management. You aren't special, David. Not like me. Never even Peter. And then you will be trapped here forever. With her. The house will make you just as crazy as that little bitch of yours. Leave, David. How long have you been in the house? I'm sure you want out as badly as she does, and she's practically asking you to kill her. There is nothing for you here. There's nothing for her here. Kill her, David. End the suffering for her. She needs it.
Natalie can't be right. There must be another way out of this room. I looked to the windows. They led outside, didn't they? The doorway we came through. It must be locked, but I could break the windows. I knew I could get out of here. I moved my hand to point the gun at the windows. But I couldn't stop myself. The gun pointed directly at Maggie. I pulled my arm in the direction of the windows again, and my body betrayed me. The gun was pointed at Natalie. The house had control of me. It was fucking with me again. She was right. The house was making me choose. And I only had one choice left. I lowered the gun to my side. Maggie. I'm so sorry, Maggie. I'm so sorry.
You're doing the right thing, David.
I'm sorry, Maggie. I'm so sorry, Maggie. Maggie, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But now that I'm management, we don't have to be apart anymore. We can be together. Forever. I heard you guys wanted to see me without the mask. Well, here you go. To everyone who's been here since the beginning, and everybody who's stuck around, or everybody who's even new who shouldn't, thanks for being here. And I think I speak for me and the blue guy over there when I say, it would literally be nothing without you.